The wind was cold and sharp, cutting like a knife through the empty streets. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the moonlight could not reach the ground. The city was dead. No voices, no machines, no signs of life. Only broken buildings and black smoke rising from far away in the shadow of a fallen tower. Two alien girls sat close together. Their bodies were thin, their faces pale from hunger. They had no shoes, no warm clothes, only torn fabric around their shoulders, dust covered. Their hair and their eyes looked tired. The younger one, barely 12 by human years, shivered and held her knees. Her name was Lyra, and her voice was soft, almost too weak to hear. "Will we die here?" she asked. The older one, Saren, stayed silent. She was maybe 16, but her eyes looked older, the kind of eyes that had seen too much. Saren pulled Lyra closer, wrapping one arm around her. Oh, she did not want to lie, but she also did not want to tell the truth. Far above, the wind howled through the broken windows of the tower. Every sound in the ruins felt dangerous. The two girls had been hiding here for 3 days, eating nothing but a few dry roots and stale water they found in a cracked pipe. They knew gangs were out there, alien gangs who hunted survivors. If the gangs found them, they would sell them to traders, or worse. Then a sound came from the street below. Not the fast, light steps of the gangs. This was heavier, slower, deliberate. The girls froze, their hearts pounding. A shadow moved between the burned-out vehicles. Saren held her breath and pulled Lyra deeper into the darkness. They watched as a tall figure stepped into the open. It was not an alien, it was a human. The figure wore a dust-covered survival suit, the kind used by soldiers and explorers. A helmet hit his face, and a long rifle hung on his back. Across his chest were small metal cases, maybe food, maybe weapons. The girls exchanged a quick, fearful glance. They had seen humans before, but never good ones. The humans here were mostly traders or mercenaries, and they only cared about money. The human stopped in the middle of the street and turned his head slowly. It was as if he could feel their eyes watching him. Saren's first thought was to run, but she knew they had no strength to escape. The human looked up toward the tower, toward them. Then he spoke, his voice deep and calm through the helmet. "Both of you," he said, "come home." The words were strange. Home. They had no home. The girls did not move. Saren narrowed her eyes, trying to see his face through the helmet glass. The human slowly raised his hands, showing they were empty from one pocket. He took out a silver packet and tossed it onto the ground. It slid across the dust and stopped near the tower's base. The smell of real food reached them, making Lyra's stomach growl. But Saren kept her arm around her. "It could be a trap. I'm not here to hurt you," the human said. "My name is Captain Elias Kane." He took a small bottle from his belt and placed it next to the packet. "You can eat, you can drink, or you can stay there and die. Your choice." The wind blew harder, carrying the smell of smoke and ash. Far away, Saren thought she heard the sound of a gang patrol, harsh laughter, and the clink of weapons. If they stayed, the gangs would find them. If they went with him, he could kill them. But if they did nothing, they would die anyway. Lyra whispered, "Saren, I'm hungry." Her small voice trembled. Saren closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. She looked down at the human. He was still standing there, waiting, not moving closer, not pulling out his weapon, just waiting. Finally, Saren spoke. "What do you want from us?" She called down. Her voice was sharp but weak. The human tilted his head. "To give you a chance," he said. "That's all." The sound of the gang patrol grew louder. Saren made her choice. She took Lyra's hand, and slowly they came out from the shadows. Step by step, they climbed down the broken stairs toward the street. The human didn't move when they reached the bottom. Saren kept her body between him and Lyra. The human bent down, picked up the packet and bottle, and handed them to her. "Eat," he said. "You'll need your strength." Lyra tore the packet open. The smell of warm bread filled the cold air. She took a bite and almost cried. Saren took a small drink from the bottle. It was clean water, not bitter, not dirty, for a moment. She almost forgot to be afraid. Then, from the shadows at the far end of the street, a shape moved. More footsteps, fast. This time, the human's hand went to his rifle. "We have to." "Move," he said. They found us without waiting for an answer. He turned and started walking. The girls looked at each other, and then they followed. The street twisted between broken walls and shattered glass. Captain Elias Kane walked ahead, his boots crunching over debris behind him. Saren kept a tight grip on Lyra's hand. Every few steps, Saren glanced over her shoulder. The shapes in the shadows were gone, but she could still feel eyes watching them. The night was cold. But Kane moved like he knew exactly where to go. Every corner he checked, every alley he scanned. It was as if he had walked these streets before. The two girls followed, not sure if they were safer now or in even more danger, after some minutes. Kane led them into a narrow passage where a wall had collapsed. There was just enough space for the three of them to crawl under. On the other side was a hidden courtyard, its gates blocked by fallen metal beams. The space smelled of rust and whetstone. Kane knelt near a broken fountain and pulled out a small black box. It opened with a click, revealing more food packets and 2 thick blankets. "Sit," he said, pointing at a stone bench. The girls obeyed, though Saren stayed tense. Kane tossed one blanket to Lyra and one to Saren. The fabric was warm and heavy. For the first time in days, their shaking slowed. "You've been here long?" Kane asked, removing his helmet. His face was rough, marked with lines, his hair dark with streaks of gray. His eyes were sharp, but not unkind. 3 days. Saren said carefully. "Before that, we moved from place to place." Kane studied them for a moment. "You're not from here," he said. Saren didn't answer, but Lyra spoke quietly. "No. Our homes are gone." The words came out like a broken truth. Kane didn't press for details, but Saren could tell he already guessed more than he said. The past they couldn't forget. Lyra had once lived on a green world, full of rivers and floating gardens. She remembered the songs of her people, the smell of flowers in the air. Then the war came, a war that wasn't theirs. One day, human warships appeared in the sky, fighting against alien fleets. The battles burned her world until it was only ash and stone. She lost her parents in the first week. Saren's world was different, a rocky desert planet under twin suns. Her people were fighters, always ready for war. But their enemy was stronger. Her city fell in a single day. She survived only because she ran into the wasteland and didn't stop running. They met here, on this mining colony. At first, they didn't trust each other. Saren was from a tribe Lyra had been taught to fear, but hunger and danger made them allies. And in the ruins, they became something more, not sisters by blood, but sisters by survival. The question of trust. Kane handed them food and watched as they ate slowly. He didn't talk much, and that made Saren even more cautious. Finally, she asked, "Why help us? You don't know us?" Kane was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Not everything has to be a trade." Saren didn't believe that in her life. Everything had a price, but she didn't argue. She needed him for now, and maybe he needed them too. They heard a distant sound, the heavy growl of an engine. Kane looked up sharply. "They're sweeping the sector," he said. "Standing. We can't stay here." He packed his supplies in seconds and put his helmet back on. The girls followed as he led them through another series of alleys. Everywhere they passed, the ruins whispered of lives that had been erased, burned posters on walls, toys lying. In the dirt, shadows that moved in the corners of their vision. A fragile alliance as they walked. Lyra tried to speak to Kane. "You're human," she said softly. Kane glanced at her. "Yes, then why? You're not with the traitors." Kane didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "I'm not with anyone anymore." Saren caught the slight change in his tone. It was the voice of someone who had lost a place, someone who had been cut off from his own people. It made him more dangerous, but also more real danger. Never far they reached the edge of the ruins, where the city gave way to the old industrial zone. Huge metal towers leaned like dead trees. In the distance, lights flickered, moving fast. Kane pulled them behind a storage crate. From here, Saren could see them clearly, a patrol of alien hunters, armed and scanning with bright search beams. "They're looking for someone." Lyra whispered, "Us." Kane said quietly. Saren's stomach turned. She knew the gangs wanted her and Lyra, but why would they want him too? The patrol passed without seeing them. Kane waited until the lights disappeared before he stood. "Come on," he said. "We have to reach the port before they do." Us. Saren didn't know if following him was the right choice, but every step away from the gangs felt like hope. Hope she had not felt in a long, long time. The industrial zone smelled of metal and smoke. Pipes hissed with steam. Broken machines lay half buried in dust. Captain Kane walked ahead, careful with each step. Saren and Lyra stayed close, their blankets wrapped tightly around them. The cold here felt even sharper, cutting through the air like thin blades. Kane stopped suddenly and raised his hand. The girls froze. From somewhere ahead came the sound of voices, low, rough, dangerous. Kane motioned for them to hide behind a rusted cargo container. Peering through a gap, Saren saw two alien hunters passing by. Their armor dull and dented. One carried a chain, the other a long blade. They spoke in a language Saren only partly understood, but one word was clear. Bounty. Her chest tightened. Someone had put a price on them. And maybe on Kane too. When the hunters were gone, Kane led them down a narrow side path. "You said they're after us," Saren whispered. Kane glanced back. "They're after anyone worth selling," he said. His voice was flat. But Saren caught something behind the words, a heaviness. A glimpse behind the helmet. A few minutes later, Kane stopped near a broken wall and knelt down from his bag. He took out a small metal canister and twisted it open. Inside was a soft, glowing fabric, a thermal wrap. He handed it to Lyra. "Put this around your chest and arms. It'll keep your body heat in." Lyra smiled shyly and obeyed. It was the first real kindness she'd felt in weeks. Saren watched Kane closely. Humans she'd met before never gave without taking, but this one, he kept giving. It didn't make sense. "You could have left us back there," she said. "I could have," Kane replied, not looking at her. "Then why didn't you?" Kane's hand stilled for a moment as he sealed the canister. "I told you, I'm not here to hurt you." It wasn't a full answer, but his tone was steady. The risky path, they moved again, crossing under massive steel arches that once held transport rails. Every sound echoed here, making even their own footsteps feel too loud. At one point, Kane raised his rifle and scanned the darkness. Saren noticed the weapon, clean, well-maintained, but old. A soldier's weapon, not a trader's. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked. Kane's reply was simple. "To my ship." Lyra's eyes widened. "You have a ship?" "Yes," Kane said. "But it's not close, and it's not safe to get there without trouble." His words made Saren uneasy. If he had a ship, he could leave this place any time, so why was he still here? The unwanted truth, as they crossed another ruined yard, a sudden light beam swept across the ground. Kane pushed them down behind an overturned transport pod. 3 alien scouts walked past, scanning with handheld devices. One of the scanners beeped. The tallest scout grinned and pointed toward the pod. Kane moved fast, too fast for the girls to react. He stood, rifle ready, and fired once into the air. The shot wasn't to kill, it was to scare. The sound echoed through the metal maze, and the scouts shouted an alarm. Within seconds, more voices answered in the distance. Kane grabbed the girls' hands and ran. They weaved through narrow passages, climbed over pipes. Saren's lungs burned, but she didn't let go of Lyra. Kane moved like he'd been running from danger his whole life. Finally, they reached a sealed maintenance hatch. Kane kicked it open and pulled them inside, slamming it shut. The small space was dark, except for a faint light on Kane's helmet. The girls were breathing hard. Kane listened at the hatch for a moment, then stepped back. "They'll search here soon," he said. "We'll move again in 5 minutes." A small moment of trusting the dim light. Saren noticed Kane's left hand trembling slightly. Not from fear, from pain. A small tear in his sleeve revealed a fresh burn along his forearm. "You're hurt," she said. "It's nothing." Kane replied, but Lyra moved closer. "My mother used to treat burns," she whispered. Kane hesitated, then handed her a small medical pack from his belt. She worked carefully, wrapping his arm in a clean bandage. For the first time, Kane looked directly at her and said, "Thank you, Saren." Watch this in silence. Something about the way Kane said it felt honest, not the voice of a man playing a trick. But she still couldn't stop wondering what he really wanted. The road ahead 5 minutes later. They were moving again. Kane guided them into an old maintenance tunnel that ran under the industrial zone. The air was warmer here, the walls lined with pipes that hummed faintly. "This will take us closer to the port," Kane said. "How close?" Saren asked. "Close enough to see it by sunrise," he replied. "Close enough to know if we'll make it out alive." The words sent a shiver down Saren's spine. She didn't know what waited at that port, or if Kane's ship was even real, but every step away from the gangs, every breath that wasn't full of smoke and fear, felt like a step worth taking. Somewhere in the tunnel ahead, a faint metallic clang echoed. Kane raised his rifle again. They weren't alone down here. The maintenance tunnel stretched like a dark vein under the ruined city. Moisture dripped from pipes. The air smelled of rust and damp metal. Kane walked in front, rifle raised, every step measured. Behind him, Saren kept a tight grip on Lyra's hand. The tunnel walls seemed to close in, and the sound of their footsteps echoed far away every few minutes. Kane stopped to listen. The girls listened too. Sometimes they heard only the drip of water. Other times, something else, a faint scuff, like boots on stone, but always far behind. "Someone is following us," Saren said quietly. "I know." Kane replied without turning. His voice stayed calm, but his pace quickened. The watcher in the dark, though. Tunnel forked into 2 paths. Kane led them down the left one, but before they turned, Saren glanced back. For a split second, she saw a shape, tall, thin, almost human, standing at the far end of the right tunnel, its head tilted as if studying them. Then it stepped back into the shadows and was gone. Saren's skin prickled. "Kane." "I saw it," she said. "I know." He answered again. "You're not surprised?" She asked. "No." "That's why we keep moving." The answer didn't make her feel safer. A brief rest after an hour, Kane stopped near an old service station. In the tunnel, the room was small and square, with a broken control panel and a dusty bench. Kane checked the corners, then motioned for the girls to sit. Lyra's legs ached, and she dropped onto the bench with a sigh. From his pack, Kane pulled out 3 small heat sticks. He cracked them, and they glowed orange. Warming the cold air, Saren sat beside Lyra, but kept her eyes on the tunnel entrance. "What is that thing following us?" she asked. Kane looked at her for a long moment before answering. Not a thing. A person. Human. No, Kane said. Worse. A tracker. Lyra's face went pale. Trackers were whispered about in the ruins. Mercenaries who could smell fear, who never gave up once they found your trail. Why is it after us? Saren asked. Because someone paid it to be. Kane said simply, and I don't plan on letting it collect. Moving under pressure, they left the station and continued. The heat sticks had faded, and the tunnel felt colder than before. The hum of the pipes grew louder. Somewhere ahead, machinery still worked when they rounded a corner. They found a broken security door blocking the path. It was half closed, jammed in place. Kane crouched and worked at the door with a metal tool from his belt. Saren kept watch while he worked. That was when she heard it again. Soft footsteps. Behind them, closer this time, her heart raced. Kane, she whispered, I hear it. He said without looking up, with one final push. The door groaned open just wide enough for them to slip through as soon as they were on the other side. Kane pulled it back into place, sealing it again. The shadow strikes. They walked for another 20 minutes before the tunnel opened into a huge underground chamber. Old cargo crates were stacked high, and a crane hung frozen above them. Kane stopped suddenly. Stay close to me, he said. Saren didn't argue. She could feel it now. That heavy silence before danger from the shadows between two crates. A figure stepped out. It was tall and thin, just like Saren had seen before. Its skin was pale gray, stretched over sharp bones. Its eyes glowed faint yellow in the dim light. The tracker smiled a slow, cold smile and spoke in a voice. Like sand scraping metal, 3 for the price of 1, before Saren could react. Kane fired. The shot echoed, and the tracker moved, not away, but forward, fast. It dove behind a crate. And Kane shouted, Run! The desperate sprint, they ran through the maze of crates. The tracker's footsteps pounding behind them. Saren dragged Lyra along. Her chest burning, Kane fired again, hitting the ground near the tracker. Forcing it to swerve, they reached another door, this one automatic, but still working. Kane slammed his hand against the control panel, and the door hissed open. They rushed through, and it closed behind them. Sealing with a heavy lock, Lyra collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. Is it gone? She asked. No. Kane said grimly, it'll find another way. Trackers always do. The light ahead, the new tunnel, was shorter. And soon a faint light appeared ahead. Saren's heart lifted. Real light meant they were near the surface. They emerged into a wide loading bay with a massive splaff collapsed roof. Through the gap, she could see the faint orange glow of a distant sunrise. Kane stopped and pointed toward a tower far across the open ground. That's the outer port, he said. If we can reach it, we can get to my ship. Saren didn't ask what waited at the port. She already knew the answer would be dangerous. The outer port looked dead from the distance. Tall loading cranes stood frozen like giant skeletons. Ships once docked here, but now only wrecks remained. Metal husks with broken wings, shattered glass windows. The air smelled of burned fuel. And sea salt from the nearby coast. Kane crouched behind a pile of cargo containers. Saren and Lyra knelt beside him, their blankets wrapped tight. The port was quiet, too quiet. Kane scanned the area with a small handscope. No patrols. He said softly, That's not good. Saren frowned. How is no patrols bad? It means they know we're coming, Kane replied. They're waiting. The sprint into danger, they moved in short bursts, running from cover to cover. The open spaces between them felt like walking through the aim of an unseen gun. Lyra stumbled once, and Saren pulled her up before Kane could notice. Every second stretched long. Every shadow felt alive. They were halfway to the control tower when the sound came, a deep metallic clang from the far side of the port. Kane's jaw tightened. He's here, he muttered. The tracker almost immediately. Another sound followed, boots on metal, fast and heavy. Not just the tracker. Others too, alien hunters, drawn by the promise of a bounty. The trap closes, the hunters spread out across the loading yard. Kane fired once, hitting a stack of metal drums. The loud crash bought them seconds. Go. Kane barked, pushing Saren and Lyra toward the tower. They ran, weaving between crates. Blaster fire flashed past, searing the air. One shot hit a crate beside Saren, showering her in sparks. Lyra screamed as a hunter lunged from the side. Kane was there in an instant, slamming the butt of his rifle into the alien's jaw. The hunter fell, but more were closing in. Face to face with the tracker, they reached the base of the control tower. A narrow staircase spiraled up toward the top. Kane shoved the girls ahead of him, firing down at the hunters below. Halfway up, a shadow moved on the stairs above the tracker. It stepped into view, its yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. "You've made this fun," it said in its cold, scraping voice. But the fun ends here. Kane didn't hesitate. He fired. The tracker ducked. The shot sparking off the wall, it moved like liquid shadow, closing the distance in seconds. Kane swung his rifle, blocking a sharp blade in the tracker's hand. The clang echoed. "Keep going." Kane shouted to the girls. Saren grabbed Lyra and pulled her upward. But she kept looking back. The moment Kane risked everything, the tracker slashed at Kane's chest. The blade caught on his armor, but still cut deep enough to make him grunt. Kane staggered back. The tracker moved in for the kill. Then Saren did something she didn't think about. She grabbed a loose metal pipe from the stairs and threw it. It struck the tracker's shoulder, making it stumble just long enough for Kane to ram his shoulder into it, sending it crashing into the wall. "Go." Kane roared again. They climbed fast, reaching the top floor of the tower from here. The view stretched over the port and the broken city behind them. The wind was strong, carrying the smell of the ocean. The past he couldn't hide, Kane sealed the tower door and locked it. He was breathing hard, blood running down his side. Saren stepped forward. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," Kane said, but his voice was rough. "You keep saying that," Saren shot back. "You're bleeding. You're being hunted. Why? Who are you really?" Kane leaned against the wall, eyes distant for a moment. Finally, he said, "I had a daughter." The words were quiet, almost lost in the wind. "She was your age, Lyra, brown hair, bright laugh. And I couldn't save her." The girls stayed silent. "She died in a war that should never have touched her." Kane continued, "I was off-world, fighting someone else's fight. And when I came back, her city was gone." He looked at them now, his gaze sharp again. "I swore I'd never let it happen to anyone else if I could stop it." A new resolve before Saren could speak. The tower door shook violently. The tracker's voice came through, low and mocking. "You can't hide, Kane." Kane loaded his rifle. "We're not hiding," he said. He opened a hatch in the floor, revealing a narrow maintenance ladder leading down the outside of the tower. "Go," he told the girls. "What about you?" Lyra asked. "I'll be right behind you," Kane said. They climbed down quickly, the metal cold under their hands. Above them, the door finally burst open. The tracker stepped inside, and Kane followed the girls down without looking back. The ladder shook under their weight. The wind from the ocean whipped across the port, cold and sharp. Below, the loading yard stretched wide and open. Beyond that, hidden behind wrecked cargo haulers, Kane's ship waited. Saren climbed first. Holding Lyra's hand, Kane came last, his boots hitting each rung hard above them. The tracker leaned out of the tower hatch, yellow eyes glowing. It didn't shoot, didn't leap. It simply watched, that smile on its face again, as if it knew something they didn't. They reached the ground. Kane motioned them to follow, and moved fast across the yard, Keeping low, the rising sun lit the cranes in gold. But the beauty felt wrong here. This was still enemy ground. The ship in sight, they slipped behind a wall of containers. From here, the ship came into view. It was old but strong, a transport-class vessel, patched with dark repair plates. Its engines were silent, waiting. The ramp was down. For the first time, Saren felt a flash of hope. "That's yours?" Lyra asked. "Yes," Kane said. "If we reach it, we're gone." But before they could move, a voice called out from the far side of the containers. "Well, well." A human with cargo, 3 alien hunters stepped into view. Blasters raised behind them. The tracker appeared. It had found another way down. It carried no gun. It didn't need one. The first clash, Kane pushed the girls behind a crate. "Stay down," he ordered. Then he fired, his rifle kicking hard in his hands. The shot hit one hunter in the chest, sending him sprawling, the other to split apart, firing back. Sparks exploded against the metal crate. The tracker moved through. The fight like smoke, it lunged for Kane, who barely dodged. Swinging the rifle to block a blade strike, Saren peeked out. Kane was fast. But the tracker was faster. It drove him back step by step. If Kane fell, they'd all be taken. The girls Step and Saren grabbed a loose wrench from the ground. Her heart pounded. She knew this was stupid, but she couldn't just watch. She ran out, swung the wrench at one of the hunters, and caught him in the side. He howled in pain. Lyra darted in and kicked the same hunter's leg. He fell hard, blaster skidding away. Saren snatched it up, her hands shaking. She pointed it at the last hunter, who hesitated just long enough for Kane to fire and drop him. Now only the tracker remained. It turned its gaze on Saren. "You're brave," it said. "That will make you worth more." The last fight, the tracker came at her. But Kane intercepted. They clashed hard, blades and rifle stock striking with sharp cracks. Kane's side wounds slowed him. The tracker slashed his arm, drawing blood. Kane stumbled. The tracker moved in for the killing blow. Lyra screamed without thinking. She pulled the blaster Saren had taken. Her hand shook, but she fired. The bolt hit the tracker's shoulder. Spinning it around, Kane used the opening to slam the rifle barrel into its chest, then fire point blank. The tracker fell, eyes wide with shock. It hit the ground and didn't move again. Running for the ramp, Kane didn't waste a second. "Move!" he shouted. They sprinted across the open yard. The ship loomed closer with every step. Blaster fire rang out behind them. More hunters had arrived. Shots exploded around their feet. Saren and Lyra ran up the ramp first, Kane right behind. Firing back over his shoulder as soon as they were inside, Kane slammed the control panel. The ramp began to rise. A blaster bolt hit the wall near Lyra, showering her with sparks. She ducked as the ramp sealed shut. Breaking free, Kane staggered into the cockpit and dropped into the pilot seat. The girls strapped into the passenger harnesses behind him. "Hold on," he barked. The engines roared to life, shaking the floor through the viewport. They saw the hunters scattering as the ship lifted off. Blaster fire followed them into the sky. But it faded quickly as the port shrank below. Clouds swallowed them, and for the first time in days, the air felt clear. The ship climbed higher, breaking through into the black of space. The stars stretched out ahead like endless lights. The moment after, Kane leaned back in his seat, breathing hard. His arm and side were bleeding, but he smiled. Faintly, "You did well back there," he said to the girls. Lyra's voice was small. "I thought you were going to die." "Not today," Kane said. Saren looked out at the stars. They weren't safe yet, but they were far from the gangs. Far from the tracker. For the first time, escape felt real. The hum of the ship's engines was steady now. Outside the viewport, stars drifted past like silver dust. Kane's hands moved over the controls with calm precision. The girls sat in their seats, still wrapped in the blankets he'd given them. For a long time, no one spoke. It was the first real silence that wasn't full of fear. Lyra leaned her head against the wall, her eyes half closed. Saren watched Cain, noticing how his shoulders seemed less tense than before, but his face was. Still unreadable, she had questions too many, yet, for now, she held them back. The hidden course hours passed before Cain finally spoke. "We're heading to Haven Reach." The name meant nothing to the girls. "What is it?" Saren asked. "A human colony," Cain said. "It's far from the war zones, deep in unmarked space. A place where no one will look for you. Will they accept us?" Lyra's voice was small. "They'll accept anyone who needs a home," Cain said. His tone carried a weight, as if he was speaking from experience. First sight of safety when Haven Reach appeared. It wasn't like the cities the girls remembered. It floated in space, built into the side of a giant asteroid. Lights shone in rings across its surface like a sleeping giant's heartbeat. Small ships moved in and out of docking bays. It was alive, not broken, not burning. The sight made Lyra sit up straight. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Saren wanted to agree, but her chest tightened. Beautiful things could vanish too quickly. She kept her guard, even as hope stirred inside her. The ship landed in a quiet bay. The air inside was warm and clean as the ramp lowered. Figures weighted humans and a few aliens together. Some wore work uniforms, others carried medical kits. One woman stepped forward, smiling gently. "Cain," she said. "You brought guests, too." Cain replied. "They've been through hell." The woman knelt in front of Lyra and Saren. "My name's Dr. Mara," she said softly. "You're safe here." Lyra almost smiled, but she glanced at Saren first. Saren gave the smallest nod. It wasn't trust yet, but it was a start. Settling in, they were taken to a small room with 2 beds, clean sheets, and a table with warm food waiting. It felt strange to sit without fear of being chased. Stranger still to eat without hiding. Lyra devoured her meal. Saren ate slower, eyes on the door. Cain stood in the doorway, watching. "You don't have to look over your shoulder here," he said. "It takes time to believe that." Saren replied quietly. Cain gave a faint smile. "Yeah, it does." The truth they needed to hear later. When Lyra had fallen asleep, Saren found Cain outside the room. She crossed her arms. "You could have left us in the ruins. Why didn't you?" Cain didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Because once someone pulled me out when I had nothing." His eyes drifted toward the stars visible through the docking bay window. "I never forgot what it felt like to be told I could come home, even when I thought I didn't have one." Saren didn't reply, but for the first time, her guarded expression softened. The first real morning the next day, as much as days could be measured in space, began with soft light. Through the window, the air smelled faintly of clean fabric and cooked bread. Lyra woke first, stretching and smiling at the ceiling. Saren woke to find her sister by survival already dressed, eager to explore, for the first time since they met. Saren felt it might be okay to let Lyra run ahead a little. Cain was waiting outside. He showed them the market streets, the quiet gardens grown under artificial suns. They saw children laughing, playing sounds that felt foreign and warm at the same time, a promise made when they reached the observation deck. The stars spread wide before them. The asteroids spun slowly, giving them a slow-moving view of distant suns and drifting nebula clouds. Lyra leaned on the glass, her breath fogging it slightly. "Do we live here now?" she asked. Cain looked at both girls. "If you want to," he said. "No more running. No more hiding. You're safe now." Saren studied him for a moment longer. This man had risked his life for them without asking for anything back. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes," she said. "We live here now." The quiet after the storm that night. Haven Reach felt like another world entirely. The hum of engines was replaced by quiet conversation in the halls. Warm light filled every corner. Saren lay awake for a while, listening to Lyra's steady breathing. For the first time in years, she wasn't listening for danger. She wasn't planning where to run next. In another room, Kane sat alone, looking out at the stars. He thought of his daughter, of the promise he made. Maybe saving these two wouldn't erase the past, but it had given the future a different shape. And somewhere deep inside, for all three of them, a place they didn't think existed anymore had quietly returned a home.